Dear friends, the peaceful days under the bamboo sponge-gourd trellis on Sim Hill seemed like the final stop for our brilliant former CEO. But you know what they say, the tree wants to stand still, but the wind won't let it. That venomous snake named Madame Huyen in the glamorous city has started to catch the scent of Toan's survival. Her dark hands are reaching out toward the rural provinces. To protect his devoted wife and this tiny home, Toan is faced with a brutal decision. He has to leave Sim Hill. He has to step right into the tiger's den before the tiger shows up at his front door. The farewell dinner under the newly built trellis is now stained with the sorrow of parting. Diem's heartbreaking sobs, the former CEO's chilling blood oath, and especially the massive shock at dawn when the car arrives to pick Toan up. It's all going to give you goosebumps. Is this separation the end, or is it the opening shot for a bloody revenge in the corporate world? Hold your breath and follow every spine-tingling detail in today's episode. The farewell dinner under the trellis and the king's shocking departure. If you're eagerly waiting for the moment the former CEO reclaims his power, don't hesitate to drop a like and hit that subscribe button to stand by his side. Let the story begin. That afternoon, the air on Sim Hill suddenly became strangely suffocating. The wind stopped blowing. The bamboo trellis cast a silent shadow over the dirt yard. Toan stood silently by the window, his eyes sharp as a razor, staring intently at the billion-dong Vertu phone that had just been fully charged. The screen lit up with a short anonymous text message, but it was enough to freeze anyone's blood. Madam H knows you're alive. Her people are sweeping all the rural clinics and police stations in the mountain districts. Be careful. The sender was K, a blood brother, and Toan's trusted right-hand man at the old corporation, someone Madame Huyen hadn't managed to root out yet. Toan gripped the phone so tightly his knuckles turned white. She was moving faster than he thought. Going to the district police station to reclaim his belongings had accidentally left a digital trail in the system. He turned his head to look out at the porch. Diem was sitting there, picking sweet potato leaves, humming a rustic folk song. Her smile was pure, so peaceful, it made his heart ache. No, I can't let Madame Huyen's cold-blooded thugs trample over this place. Sim Hill is Diem's flesh and blood, our only peaceful sanctuary. I have to go. Toan gritted his teeth, making his final decision. A strategy to lure the tiger away from the mountain was the only way they would survive this. That evening, dinner was served under the trellis. Even though there was a mouth-watering bowl of ginger-braised chicken and a vibrant green bowl of sweet leaf soup, the atmosphere was thick with a heavy silence. Throughout the meal, Toan didn't take any food for himself. He just kept putting the best pieces into his wife's bowl. His eyes looking at Diem were filled with heartache and longing. A wife's intuition is never wrong. Diem held her chopsticks, but couldn't swallow a single grain of rice. She looked at her husband's unusual expression, her voice soft and trembling. Toan, something's wrong, isn't it? You've been spaced out all afternoon. Did the police call you again? Or did those bad people find us here? Toan put his chopsticks down. He reached out and held his wife's rough hand, taking a deep breath. He couldn't hide it anymore. Diem, listen to me. Tomorrow, I have to go to the city for a while. Clatter. The aluminum spoon in Diem's hand dropped onto the food tray. All the color drained from her face. Her breath caught in her chest. To the city? Why, you said you didn't care about the company anymore. You said this trellis was our castle. Toan, please don't go. Your enemies are up there, that evil Madame Huyen is up there. Going up there is like handing your life over to the tiger. DM's tears streamed down her face. She lunged forward, hugging Toan's arm, tightly, burying her face in his chest, and sobbing uncontrollably. The trauma of that night when he was covered in blood, gasping for his last breath on the edge of the cliff, rushed back, tearing at her soul. This simple country woman didn't need wealth, didn't need the title of a CEO's wife. She just wanted a living, breathing husband, even if it meant having to eat dirt to survive. Toan held his wife tight. DM's tears soaked the front of his shirt, hot and piercingly painful. For the first time, the notoriously iron-willed former CEO shed tears. 2 streams of tears rolled down the man's sun-tanned cheeks. He stroked his wife's disheveled hair, his voice hoarse, but carrying the raw power of an impending hurricane. "It's exactly because she's so evil that I have to go deem she's caught my scent. If I just hide here, sooner or later they'll track me straight to Sim Hill. I'm not afraid to die, but I'm terrified they'll hurt you. You are my life." DM looked up at her husband with red, teary eyes, her lips pressed tightly together. Toan reached into his pocket and pulled out his powerful black card and the gleaming Rolex watch. He placed them all in DM's hands, folding her fingers over them to hold them tight. "I'm leaving all these assets with you. The pin is our wedding date. You stay home, and if anything goes wrong, take this money and run somewhere else." Seeing DM about to shake her head in refusal, Toan immediately stopped her, his eyes flashing with the sparks of a wounded beast, preparing to counterattack. "Listen to me, I'm not going back to hand over my life. I stepped back, I threw away my throne in exchange for peace, but she still wants to annihilate me to the bitter end. Since that's how it is, I'm going to show Madame Huyen the true meaning of Ruthel." I stopped right where your text cut off at Toan. Just paste the next part whenever you're ready. "In our ruthlessness of the rules, I'm leaving this time not just to take back what was lost, but to make her pay a heavy price for every single tear you're shedding today. I swear it with the sky of Sim Hill as my witness." The ironclad, chilling oath uttered under the summer night's sponge-gored trellis made the surrounding air feel like it had frozen solid. Toan's stillness wasn't weakness, it was the absolute peak of his rage. Madame Huyen's enemy was no longer the elegant CEO of the past. He was a wolf who had tasted the absolute depths of human suffering. That night, Sim Hill was dead silent, but inside the wooden house no one slept a wink. DM sat quietly in the dim light of the oil lamp. She brought out Toan's frayed old backpack, carefully folding and packing his dark-colored clothes. She quietly went down to the kitchen, bringing up a jar of sesame salt and a bottle of pork floss, packing them tightly into the corner of the bag. Reaching into her inner pocket, DM pulled out a wad of small bills. It was all the money she had scrimped and saved from selling potatoes and chicken eggs over the past few months. A few 100,000 and 50,000 dong bills were smoothed out perfectly. She secretly stuffed that wad of cash into a hidden compartment at the bottom of the backpack and zipped it up carefully. Even though Toan had given her the black card holding tens of billions to DM, her own money was the most genuine, cleanest money to keep him safe on the road. She didn't know how brutal the war in the city would be. She just worried her husband might go hungry or thirsty on the way. In bed, Toan lay on his side, his eyes slightly open, watching his wife's small silhouette cast against the wooden wall. A wave of bitter sorrow washed over him. He told himself this would be the absolute last time he let this woman suffer because of him. The shocking departure. Early the next morning, thick fog blanketed the path from the house to the main road. Toan slung the frayed backpack over his shoulder, wearing a faded light grey dress shirt, and stepped out of the gate. DM ran after him, still hastily clutching her conical hat, her eyes swollen from crying all night. Remember to take care of your health. If anything is too dangerous, just let it go. Okay, I'll be home waiting for you. DM mumbled her instructions, clutching the hem of Toan's shirt, unable to bear letting go. Toan nodded, pulling her into his arms one last time, burying his face in her hair that smelled faintly of kitchen smoke. Wait for me. When it's done, I'll come back to get you. Logically, DM thought Toan would have to walk to the village communal house to wait for the rickety district bus to take him to the province. But no, just as the couple stepped onto the paved road, cutting across the hillside out from the thick fog, two blinding beams of car headlights swept toward them. The powerful roar of an engine tore through the silence of the Highland morning. A sleek black luxury SUV, massive as a beast, slowly rolled up and slammed on the brakes right in front of Toan and DM. DM jumped back behind her husband in terror. Her heart leaped into her throat. Had Madame Huyen's people already tracked them down? But the scene that followed left DM frozen in shock. The car door opened. A tall, imposing man, wearing a perfectly tailored black suit and sunglasses, quickly stepped out. It was none other than Toan's most trusted right-hand man. Kay walked right up to Toan, took off his sunglasses, his bloodshot eyes welling with emotion. That hardened gangster suddenly bowed respectfully, at a perfect 90-degree angle, his deep voice echoing across the hill. "Welcome back, Mr. Chairman. Everything is ready per your orders." DM covered her mouth, her eyes wide in absolute shock. Toan gently patted DM's hand to reassure her. He slowly turned around. In that exact moment, the rustic humility of a potato farming peasant completely vanished. His spine straightened, his shoulders broadened, and his razor-sharp gaze swept over the powerful black car. The overwhelming, ruthless, and authoritative aura of the legendary CEO officially exploded, dominating the entire space. Toan turned to look at DM one last time, flashed a half smile, and strode toward the VIP seat in the back of the car. Slammed the car door shut solidly. The black SUV roared, tearing through the hazy fog, and sped off toward the city. It left behind a peaceful Sim Hill and raced ahead toward a bloody hurricane preparing to crash down on Madame Huyen's head. The king had officially marched to war. The black SUV tore through the mountain fog, speeding down the highway, straight toward the city center. Inside the car, the silence was suffocating. Kay, the loyal subordinate, drove while sneaking glances in the rearview mirror. The man sitting in the back seat was no longer the weather-beaten guy hoeing dirt to plant gourds. Toan leaned back against the plush leather seat, his eyes half closed, but the lines on his face radiated a chilling, terrifying authority. His hand was unconsciously fiddling with the billion-dong Virtu phone, the weapon connecting him to the underworld and the financial elite. "Mr. Chairman?" Kay's hoarse voice broke the silence. "All preparations at Base B are complete. The clothes classified documents and the internal company surveillance system have all been activated. Would you like to rest first or proceed with the secret meeting immediately?" Toan slowly opened his eyes. His piercing, eagle-like gaze stared through the car window, taking in the skyscrapers gradually appearing on the horizon. "There's no time to rest. The longer we hesitate, the easier it is for Huyen's hunting dogs to catch the scent of our blood." Straight to Base B. The car wove through the bustling streets, eventually diving into the underground parking garage of one of the city's most exclusive luxury apartment complexes, a place no one would ever suspect. Stepping into the top-secret penthouse, Toan immediately stripped off the frayed dress shirt he had brought from Sim Hill. Kay respectfully presented a custom-tailored navy blue suit paired with a pitch-black silk tie. When he slipped on the suit and slicked back his hair with gel, the image of the legendary former CEO, the man who once shook the financial world, had returned completely intact, brilliant and incredibly dangerous, 100 times over. The overwhelming aura radiating from his every step made the bodyguards in the room bow deeply, not even daring to breathe heavily. Tomorrow morning, the corporation is holding an extraordinary shareholder meeting to legitimize the transfer of all my shares to Huyen, Toan said, as he buttoned his cuffs, his voice as sharp as a knife. Prepare a car for me. Tomorrow I will personally kick open the doors to that meeting room, just to see how pale that wicked woman's face gets when she sees a ghost returning from the dead. The king's return the next morning. The multi-billion dong corporate headquarters stood imposingly in the center of District 1, gleaming under the sunlight. On the 68th floor, where the shareholder meeting was taking place, dozens of investors and department directors were buzzing with gossip. Everyone was waiting for the appearance of Madame Huyen, the vice chairwoman, who was preparing to officially ascend to the throne as queen at exactly 9:15 a.m. The massive oak doors of the meeting room were suddenly kicked open. Bam! All eyes darted to the door. A few secretaries jumped, dropping their clipboards. Toan walked in, hands in his pockets, his demeanor calm and poised, yet carrying a bone-chilling coldness. Walking right behind him were Kay and 4 massive black-suited bodyguards. Sorry for the delay. Traffic was a bit heavy today. Toan's deep voice rang out, flashing a half-smile full of sarcasm. The entire room froze as if struck by a paralysis spell. Gasps of sheer disbelief echoed around. Director Toan, didn't he go missing in that accident? Oh my God, he's alive. Unbelievable. Toan swept his gaze around the giant oval conference table. He was anticipating seeing Madame Huyen's panicked, blood-drained face. He craved to see her trembling, kneeling, and begging for her life in front of everyone. But the leopard print chairman's chair, right in the center, was empty. Toan frowned. The intuition of a seasoned player told him something was wrong. At that moment, the CEO, who was one of Madame Huyen's trusted lackeys, stood up, trembling, pushed up his glasses and stammered. Sir Toan, your return is truly a miracle. But Sir Vice Chairwoman Huyen, she isn't here. Where is she hiding? Don't tell me she called in sick on a day this important. Toan stepped forward, slamming both hands on the table, making the entire room flinch. No. Last night, Vice Chairwoman Huyen delegated all executive operations to the board of directors. She said there was an unexpected project. She took a red-eye flight abroad. I heard she's moving to Europe. No return date. The empty throne. Bam! Those words were like a bucket of ice water thrown straight onto the raging fire in Toan's chest. Madame Huyen went abroad, escaped overnight. Turns out the exact moment the 2 hitmen were busted by the district police, her spy network tipped her off. Her cunning and cowardice exceeded all expectations. She knew Toan was alive, knew the police were investigating, so she grabbed a massive amount of cash and bolted from Vietnam, leaving behind an absolute mess at the corporation. The phone in Toan's pocket suddenly vibrated. A text from an unknown number. Cheers to your spectacular resurrection, my esteemed old boss. By the time you read this, I'm already enjoying a glass of wine in a place far, far away. You might survive the abyss, but in this high society, the one who strikes first wins. Enjoy that empty chairman's seat. Rage exploded in Toan's chest. He crushed the glass water cup on the table. Shards of glass pierced his hand, drawing blood, but he felt absolutely no pain. The sheer fury of his prey slipping through his fingers at the very last second made Toan's eyes flare with blood-red streaks. The entire meeting room was dead silent. No one dared to make a peep. They were terrified of the former chairman's wrath. But Toan didn't smash things or scream. The most terrifying thing about a ruler isn't when he goes crazy, but his icy stillness. He pulled a handkerchief from his breast pocket and casually wiped the blood from his hand. He pulled out the chairman's chair and slowly sat down. The position of a king was officially reinstated. "Listen carefully." Toan's voice rang out sharp, cold, and authoritative. "Madame Huyen has fled on charges of orchestrating a murder. Interpol will soon issue an arrest warrant for her. From this exact second, I, Toan, officially take back full executive control of the corporation. All of you who colluded with Huyen, embezzled company funds, forged the books. I'm giving you exactly 24 hours to submit your resignations and return the money. Otherwise, tomorrow all the files will be sent straight to the criminal police department." Hearing this, Madame Huyen's lackeys lost all color in their faces, their limbs turning to jelly as they slumped against the table. The empire Huyen had spent so long building was shattered to pieces with just a raise of Toan's hand, the new target. But that wasn't enough. Returning to his private office, Toan stood looking through the floor-to-ceiling windows, admiring the panoramic view of the bustling city. Kay stood behind him, asking respectfully, "Boss, she fled abroad, we've lost her trail. An international arrest warrant takes a lot of time. What's your plan?" Toan smirked, a ruthless smile blooming on his lips. "Do you think she's living peacefully just because she fled abroad? No, Kay. She ran because she's terrified of prison, but the money and the lifeblood feeding her are still right here in Vietnam. She still holds a massive amount of shadow shares, and that mega eco-resort project she didn't have time to liquidate." Toan turned around, his eyes blazing. "She wants to play hide-and-seek. Fine, I won't chase her abroad. I will stay right here. I'll cut off all her lifelines. I will have people freeze every single account associated with her. I will smash that mega eco-resort project she poured her heart into. When the snake has no food and no money to throw around for bribes in a foreign land, it will have to crawl right back to its cave to face the music. A ruthless, venomous, and absolute move." Instead of wasting energy hunting down his enemy, Toan decided to burn the entire forest down, so the prey would have to run out on its own. His first night back in the city. Inside the luxurious multi-million-dollar penthouse, equipped with top-tier amenities, Toan felt utterly empty and profoundly cold. There was no sound of frogs croaking, no cool, crisp night dew, no smell of kitchen smoke lingering on his shirt, and most importantly, no small embrace from DM. Toan loosened his tie and poured a glass of expensive red wine. He walked over to the corner of the room and opened the frayed old backpack he had brought from Sim Hill. Looking at the carefully wrapped jar of sesame salt and the wad of small bills smelling of alum soil that DM had secretly stuffed into the bottom of the bag, the former CEO's nose stung. He held the power to call the shots, possessing a multi-billion dong fortune, yet he couldn't enjoy a single good meal without a plate of fried eggs made by his country wife. Toan picked up his phone and dialed a familiar number. On the other end of the line, a sleepy but frantic voice answered immediately. "Toan, is that you? Toan, did you get there yet? Why are you just calling me now? I've been worried sick." Just that simple, rustic Toan was enough to make all the exhaustion and the cold, ruthless demeanor of a corporate chairman instantly vanish. The corners of Toan's lips curled into the gentlest smile. "I got here safely. I'm sorry work was so busy. I just found a place to rest. Are you okay at home? Is the sick hen laying eggs? Did the sponge-gourd trellis grow any new tendrils? Diem sniffled on the other end of the line. Stop worrying about the gourds and the chickens. You be careful up there. The city is complicated and people scheme and cheat so badly. Did you find the few small bills I hid at the bottom of your backpack? Remember to save them for breakfast. Don't starve yourself and get a stomachache. I found them. Toan's voice choked up. He didn't dare tell Diem about the bloody war he had just launched, and he certainly didn't dare tell her Madame Huyen had fled abroad, afraid she would worry too much. Diem, I miss you. I miss the smell of our kitchen smoke. Just wait for me a little while longer. Once I solve these problems and clean up the bad guys, I'll come back to Sim Hill and cook for you. Be a good girl and go to sleep, okay? Hanging up the phone. Toan closed his eyes, resting his head against the glass window. Below him, tens of thousands of streetlights twinkled. He was not allowed to lose this war, nor was he allowed to drag it out. Because in that distant mountain village, a great woman was waiting for him to come home so they could stir-fry sponge gourds for dinner together. He would turn Madame Huyen's cowardice into the most horrifying punishment. That evil woman, fleeing abroad, thought she had escaped, but she had actually just stepped right into the living hell Toan had laid out for her. Dear friends, no one expected that Madame Huyen grabbing her money and fleeing abroad, seemingly throwing cold water on Toan's fiery revenge, would actually ignite an even more classic, exponentially more ruthless revenge strategy from the former CEO, freezing her assets, choking off her lifelines. Toan is determined to back his enemy into a corner, making her wish she were dead even in a foreign land. The contrast between his cold, calculating mind in the corporate world and his warm, beating heart when calling his poor wife back on Sim Hill has painted a beautiful portrait of a true gentleman. However, will Madame Huyen simply fold her arms and let her shadow empire be stripped away? What will she order her underworld lackeys in Vietnam to do to retaliate against Toan? And will Diem's peaceful Sim Hill fall into the crosshairs of those cold-blooded killers? Don't take your eyes off the screen. Catch the next breathtaking episode. The Intercontinental Octopus Tentacles. Madame Huyen strikes back and danger stalks the poor wife, and leave a comment predicting how Toan will protect his wife. Hit like and subscribe to the channel to follow the next developments. Wishing you all a very peaceful evening.
Ai sẽ bảo vệ con bé.